This is Dr. Richard. I'm known to be the lecturer of GIS and remote sensing here at UNILAC, together with my colleague, Dr. Bubakar. And the first presentation mostly focused on the data collection. How can we collect remote sensing data? And if I observed very well the second presentation, it was all about how to process those data. In general, this is what I can call Earth observation. The download of remotely sensed data, the downloads and the processing of this data, then their examination and their interpretation to give full information is what I can call Earth observation. So I'm not going to talk much about the download of this data or the processing of this data, but I'm coming to the application of this data. Because this data can be applied to solve different environmental problems, among which disaster is the one that is most pronounced here in Rwanda. That is why I have chosen to talk about the Earth observation technology potential. How can the application of this remote sensing data can be used for climate-induced disasters? I will focus on how can this data be used for the monitoring, for the modeling, and deduce some mitigation measures of different climate-induced disasters. As we all know, Rwanda has changing temperature and rainfall pattern. This seasonal variation has come with different environmental impact, among which flood and landslide and drought has been more pronounced. As we have seen, in Rwanda, different disasters are being happened and they cause a lot of impacts. One of the serious disasters that we have been facing was the 2023 flooding and landslide that has claimed more than 100 people, 50,000 houses were destroyed, and this one also claims some economic retard. And that is why we need to find some solutions. Some solution to do what? To solve or to minimize or to mitigate these climate-induced disasters. As you can see on this picture, these disasters, as you know, Rwanda is a small country. Being small, we have a very big and a very huge population density. And this population strain the land resources that we have. We have small parts of land, but we are doing a lot of activity on them that you create different instabilities on these land resources that are scarce. And if we have a huge population density, many people are choosing to reside or to live in flooding and landslide high-risk zones. And how can we find the safe zone to put these people? How can we identify the risk zone? We can still leverage or we can still explore these Earth observation techniques to model and to find different places where we can settle the people, and we can use them even to do what we call the land use planning, to know the safe area for the people to live, the safe area to put some infrastructure and all the livelihood of the community. As you can see on these two pictures, this is an area that has informal settlement, and even it is on the informal settlement, and it is located on places that are in high-risk areas. The best solution to do here is just to relocate these people and put them in the safest area. But how to know the safest area? We need to use GIS, we need to use remote sensing data, process them to monitor, model them to find some what we call disaster susceptibility zone, and this one can show us the classes with different landslide or drought or even flood zone areas. The challenges that Rwanda is facing are myriad. There are so many, but those that mostly that benefit on this climate-induced disaster are, for instance, the country is a landlocked and it has a small size, I said. Having a small size with a huge population density, it caused this area to be susceptible to these climate-induced disasters. The topography of the country has it is called a country of 1,000 hills. That means the topography is too hilly, and this puts the country to be prone to different climate-induced hazards such as erosion, landslide, and even flooding for the people that are living downstreams. And we also have high population density, as already discussed. We have also the vulnerability to climate changes, and the climate change effects are hitting everyone. No one has not been hit by the effect of climate change. People are claiming that we are getting too much rainfall than we should be getting. The period of having too much temperature, we are having rainfall and vice versa. And we also have a limited agricultural land. Having a limited agricultural land, having a huge population, people need to be food secured. But unfortunately, these climate-induced disasters are affecting this small agricultural land, and this one is causing problem on the food security of the country. To solve all these challenges, we need to find solution, and trust me, Earth observation technology can help to solve this problem and mitigate and minimize some of these climate-induced hazards. This is what happened in Rwanda in May 2023, and from 2018 up to now, these are the damages that Rwanda has facing. And if you can, I don't know if you are reading very well, this flooding and landslide claim more than 100 people that lost their lives. 70,000 people were displaced. And if we calculate, after the calculation, we found that only this one in 2023 has reduced the GDP of the country by 0.7%. And the recovery took billions of money. It took 518 billions of money. This is a huge money that should be invested in some other field. But unfortunately, all this huge money is being invested into the mitigation of disasters. And why all of this? Because we lack different mechanisms, different processes, and different measures. And Earth observation can deal with this. Earth observation can help minimize this amount of money that we are wasting on disasters. When we're talking about Earth observation, this is nothing other than to collect the data. The first presenter have shown how we can collect the data. After collecting those data, they are not to just be stored into your computer. They need to be analyzed and interpreted to bring information that are relevant to disaster risks. And unlike the traditional photography, now we have what you call the Earth observation sensors. We have different sensors that can sense what we have on the landscape. And if we can sense how do we have on the landscape, then we can sense in different time period what I can call temporal resolution, and this one can show the changes that has happened over the landscape. And these changes can guide what to do next. Why is Earth observation technology crucial for Rwanda? This Earth observation is very important for Rwanda, having seen different challenges that Rwanda is facing. Rwanda has the first challenge in disaster. It is the topography, the topographic nature of the country. It is a hilly country, and we are facing climate changes. If we know that we have a hilly country and we are facing climate challenges, it means we are prone to climate-induced disasters, especially people living on a high elevated area. Apart from these challenges, we also have the climate challenges I have also discussed, but we also have Earth observation satellites that can provide historical data. If we can have historical data, they can be compared with the present data to find out the changes that have happened over the area. The changes on the slope can be such as the slope deformation. And if we can identify all of this deformation, it can be a source to take early warning. We can warn the people that this area is going to face such disasters, and these people can take countermeasures as early as possible, and we can reduce the loss of their lives, we can reduce the loss of their properties, and we can keep the economic development, and we focus also the sustainable development. We also have the agricultural economy, which is being affected, as I have already mentioned. And this Earth observation can enable the precision agriculture monitoring at both national and local scale. When you're talking about agriculture, agriculture is also part of forestry. And when we identify the vegetation cover changes, this has something to tell us. When we identify that the vegetation are under stress, it tells us, or it introduces what we can call drought. And drought, this is one of the enemies of agriculture. So through vegetation changes and through moisture monitoring, or when we can map, or if we can identify the moisture content of the soil using these sensors, we can identify the early stages, or we can see the early sign of drought. And this one can help us take different mitigation measures so that we can protect the crop yield and protect the agricultural fields. The rapid urbanization of the country. This rapid urbanization of the country also causes some problems. As people are being more urbanized, they are also forced sometimes to live in informal settlements that are prone to disasters. Using this Earth observation, we can map and see the city growth. We can map to see what has been lost at the expense of something else. Because as the urbanization is growing, the more the disaster can also happen if no better mitigation measures are taken. If the country is more urbanized, we add the paved roads. And these paved roads also add floodings. When the country is being more urbanized, people tend to leave the rural areas, come into the urban areas to find for settlement. And we have the land is scarce. This one will push people to do deforestation. This one will push people to live in an informal settlement and end up facing or suffering the effect of these disasters. Urbanization is good, of course, and we cannot stop to urbanize. But when we are urbanizing, we also find some countermeasures that will prevent disasters, such as building different drainage, building the culvert. But these drainages also should find the suitable area to put them on. This Earth observation, using different set of techniques, can show the suitable area where we can put the culvert or where we can put the drainages to prevent the disasters. Most importantly, Rwanda, as a developing country, we are facing a challenging of the lack of ground-based monitoring infrastructure. We don't have enough ground-based infrastructure, the field infrastructure. We don't have enough rainfall gauge. We don't have enough sensors that can sense all of this. But why do we lack this one? The financial mean. They cost a lot. We need a lot of money to have all this ground-based observation. But Earth observation or remote sensing has become an alternative that can be cost-effective because this Earth observation provides the data that are free. The Landsats, some are free. The DEM, they are all free. And all of these can generate a bunch of different factors that can be put together, integrated using different modeling, and we find out the solution instead of relying on only the ground-based monitoring infrastructure. So this is how Earth observation is really important. And not only being really important like this, it is cost effective and it is also time efficient because it doesn't require a lot of time. If you are going to the field, it will require a lot of time because you can cover a large area, but this large area can be covered in a short period of time when you are using remote sensing and GIS. But also sometimes this Earth observation can become costly or can become expensive, especially when it comes to high quality images. Some high quality images are very expensive, such as we have the one we call Econos, we have what we call Quick Birds. All of these are very expensive. But even though they're expensive, we have some other free alternatives that can be used to keep monitoring the changes, the environmental changes that are happening. All of this can help into the early warning system and disaster preparedness. If we are warned early, if we are well prepared, then we are minimizing the effect of climate-induced disasters. Now, I said when I started this presentation, I'm just going to focus on the monitoring. After the monitoring, the modeling. After the modeling, come into how can we deduce some mitigation measures. Let's start by the monitoring. How can we use the Earth observation technology to monitor the climate-induced disasters? This is nothing other than combining several factors. After combining them, we can see the changes that has happened over an area, and these changes can tell us what should we expect next. When you're talking about Earth observation technology, we mean a set of data that can be collected. My brother Utao has already shown how can we download this data. Among this data, we have the most promising. We have what we call the Landsats. We have what we call the Sentinel-1. All of these, Landsat and Sentinel-1, are there to monitor the land use changes. What are the environmental changes that we can see on the landscape? But we also have the Sentinel-2. The Sentinel-2 is a radar. This radar is just there to detect the weather. If we can track the weather and predict the weather, then we are prepared to face the climate-induced disasters. Apart from this one, we also have the DEM, and this one can help in the topographic and hydrologic analysis. Then all of this data should be integrated in geospatial platform. We have different geospatial platforms, but the most known is Geographic Information System and Spatial Modeling. Apart from GIS, we have several geospatial platforms. We can also have ERDAS, we can have ENVI, we can have ArcGIS Pro, we can have TerraSat, We can have so many that we can explore and deduce different information that can be used to take a set of measures. Among using the DEM data that we collected from remote sensing, we can deduce different factors. And those factors are mostly important when you want to monitor flooding, landslide, and drought. Among these factors, let's start by the topographic factors. DEM can help us to process the elevation of an area. When we know highly elevated areas and less elevated areas, when we know the area that has the steep slope and the gentle slope, and when we know the slope direction, this one can help us to do what? To predict where can we, maybe if I can say, where can we expect some landslide, because the topographic factors are the factors that help us to deduce where can we expect landslide, where can we expect flooding. Apart from all of this, the same DEM can help us to deduce the curvature. The curvature is there to tell us where do we have high mountains and where do we have valleys and where do we have flat areas. And this one means a lot in terms of disasters. And we also have the TWR. TWR is what I call the topographic wetness index. The topographic wetness is there to help us know the effect of the topography on runoff generation. If we know the effect that the topography is having on runoff, then it can guide us in taking different countermeasures. We also have the SPI, what we call the stream power index. This stream power index shows us the stream with the capacity to cause erosion. And erosion is one among the climate-induced disaster risks. If we can predict, if you can know the areas where we can have erosion, then it is an alarm that we should start using the best agricultural practices if we are in an agricultural field. Then we also have the ASTI, which I call the sediment transport index. It shows us the river with the capacity to transport more sediments. And this one means something in water pollution or in water management. We also have some hydrologic factors that also are deduced from DEM, and the other one deduced from meteorological data. We have, for instance, what we call the flow direction. The flow direction shows us the direction of the stream. The stream is flowing toward which direction? If it is flowing toward the east, then if there is an overflow, we can predict that the people from the east are prone to flooding or other disaster. And we also have the flow accumulation. It shows where the water will accumulate. In other words, among all these rivers, it shows the rivers with the capacity to cause more flooding. Through, I don't know if you can see the rivers over here. After mapping, it has been shown that this in red has very high flow. And this one, for the people who knows this one, this is Nyabarongo River. And in orange, over here, if you can see, this is the Sebeya River. And they fall into very high and high. And the Sebeya and Nyabarongo rivers are the rivers that are well known to cause more runoff, to cause more flooding when there's too much rainfall, which results into the overflow of the streams. We also have the proximity to rivers. Generally, it is known that areas or the slopes or the elevation that is near the river are prone to flooding, are prone to landslides. We also have some mean rainfall. This one, mean rainfall, also comes from a satellite image. If, for instance, a country do not have the required data, or the data have so many gaps in the meteorological station data, there is a way that we can download the rainfall that are derived from remote sensing, and this one can tell us the weather patterns, can show us the rainfall and the temperature pattern. Next, we can also deduce the vegetation indices and land surface monitoring. From vegetation indices, you can calculate or you can measure the vegetation greenness through the NDVR. If you know the vegetation greenness means the vegetation are of high quality. And we know that vegetation is there to capture the water, vegetation is there to support the soil, and this one can act as a mitigation measure for flooding and landslide. We also have the VCI and VHI. VCI means Vegetation Condition Index, and the VHI means the Vegetation Health Index. These two factors help us in drought monitoring, because when we calculate all of this, it shows us the area that are susceptible to drought impact, and this one means something for our agriculture field, for our agriculture production, and so on. We can also calculate the land surface temperature. The land surface temperature, when it is mixed with vegetation changes, we can predict areas that can face drought in the future. Then you have the land use cover changes. This one is the most prestigious because all of the factors I have mentioned, when they are affected, even this land use and land cover change will be affected. Not only we do a visual interpretation, we also do a quantitative assessment of what is happening on the landscape. The changes that has happened on the landscape can tell something on climate-induced disasters. And all of this can be quantitatively assessed. They can be not only mapping, but you can also some statistical analysis to see the areas that have increased, the areas that have decreased, or the areas that have become stable. We can also map the soil characteristics using remote sensing. And as environmentalists, all of us, we know that the soil means on flooding, on landslides, through maybe the infiltration capacity, through soil moisture, and so on. We have the soil type, even the lithology. We can check the underground rocks. We can also check the soil moisture. All of this means something, or it can help us to monitor the flooding, the landslide, and drought. And these three are what we call the climate-induced disaster risks that we are exposed to. That was the monitoring. The modeling now. When we have all of this data, it is not sufficient. We need now to model them. We need now to put them into an algorithm. There are different algorithms that we call models, equations that have been created to integrate all of this data, and this data, from this data, we're going to deduce different information that are related to disaster risk. This one involves the modeling, the data modeling involves the data processing, integration. To process, it means those data, we already have those data, we have processed them to get all the factors we need. Then we come to the integration. Integration means resampling them first because they come from different spatial resolution, and we cannot model two data that have different characteristics. We should give them same spatial resolution, same characteristics, so that it can be integrated in one software or in one model. Then we explore the spatial analysis. We put them into GIS. We use different tools to deduce some information. This is a diagram that can be used when we are processing the data. We start from identify the database construction. We construct a database. We think, what are the factors that drive the climate-induced disasters? We have so many factors that we can use to deduce disaster risk reduction, to disaster risk issues. When we construct this database, we need to put them on tests to see if we don't have similar or factors that can provide similar information. And after this, when you are using machine learning modeling, you need to split this because we need to take first the controlling factors. Then after that, we need to go to the terrain or to the field to collect previous data and the current data, which will be used maybe to validate if the result that we got from remote sensing is accurate or not. Then these historical data, they are points. These points are the location of areas that have been facing this disaster in the previous time. If, for instance, you have identified 500 points, not all of them are going to be used in the modeling. 55% can be used to simulate or to model, what we call to train the model, while the remaining 55% of the points are being used to validate the model. Because if the result of the model is not validated, you might end up providing erroneous maps that can misguide the policymakers. That is why we should make sure we validate the result that we have got to a certain extent so that we can say our model have performed to a certain accuracy assessment, and we can allow the decision makers and the policy makers to use the modeling. After that, we can take these points that we have collected and take these conditioning factors and put them in one algorithm, one model. You simulate, then you get the result. I remember when I was teaching my students, when I start teaching the student, when we start modeling, I just have to screen different equations, different formulas. And the student will be very scared, saying that they are going back to mathematics. No, GIS is there for you. What you need to know is just to know how to write it and how to type. You just type, you click, you get the results. So whenever you see a model, just understand it. Understand the algorithm. Don't go and start studying mathematics. Then after that, after modeling, you can deduce a result. For instance, after putting all the factors into my model, I have got, for instance, these two results. This one has shown me the areas. It is a prediction. It has predicted the areas that will face landslide in the future. We call it an index, classes. The first map shows the areas that are susceptible to landslide at low extent, at very high extent, and at moderate extent. As you can see here in Rwanda, if we see the very high susceptibility or very high prone, if you see the western part and the northern part are the ones that are more susceptible to what? To landslide. Why? Because of we will know what is the causal factor, the primary factor that are causing this susceptibility. This one will come from the factors that we have modeled first. Because these factors, putting in the model, it will give the ranks. If I have 12 factors, it will provide the ranks from the first one up to the last one, which one contributes the most. If you can observe in this table, if you see the rate over here, the one that has a high rate is this one that has, the one that has high rate, the ranking, the first one, this one, it has 22.1%. It has high rate. This one means it is a factor that we call rainfall. So rainfall is the first factor that contributes to landslides. The second one is, if you see number 2, is this one number 2, and it has 15.2, and it is the proximity to river. The river proximity, remember the Nyabarongo, remember the Sebeya. Then the third one, if we see number 3 over here, we have the land use and land cover. The land use and land cover changes. Maybe the area has been deforested. If the area has been deforested, it means it is susceptible to slope instabilities. So we can get all the ranking from the first factor that contributes to the less contributing factor. Apart from the landslide, now we have the flooding areas. We have, so if you have these maps that are predicting area to face landslide and flooding, then it means we can provide some early signs, some early warning, and take some mitigation measures. Among the modeling that can be used, we have so many modeling, from statistical, the empirical, and even the machine learning. We have, for instance, that we call logistic regression, frequency ratio, weight of evidence, machine learning such as random forest, support vector machine. We have so many, and we have the easiest one that I always teach to my student, the analytical hierarchy processes that is being used, and it is one among the easiest modeling that we can perform. Then, we also have, using different factors, such as the land surface temperature, using the vegetation cover index, using the vegetation health, we can predict where can we expect droughts. This map has been produced by one of my students. I think we can acknowledge him, Alice. Alice, can you stand up? Can you? We can clap for Alice because she's the one who has done this research by producing areas that we can expect drought in the future, and this one can help mostly to take measures for the food security of our country. When you use the satellite image results, they should always be validated, and we validate this one by the field observation, by ground truthing. But unfortunately, as I said, Rwanda does not have enough instruments for the validation of our results. That is why we are encouraging Rwanda to invest more into this ground-based instrument so that we can be having the data that can help us to validate our Earth observation results. Then we have also the data access and continuity. having some data. It was difficult in the past, but now I think the program is ongoing well, whereby data can be shared by different international institutes. What are the current initiatives that Rwanda has taken? Number one, Rwanda now has an institution that deals with remote sensing. We call it the Rwanda Space Agency. And this one is the one that deals with all the spatial modeling and spatial analysis. Rwanda also has signed different MOUs, Memorandum of Understanding, with different institutions that deal with spatial analysis. For instance, it has signed the MOU with the Regional Center for Mapping of Resource and Development, and this one is providing a lot of certified trainings to the students to the members who are interested to deal with this geospatial modeling. We also have the Rwanda Land Management and Authority, which maintain the digital elevation model, the land use planning, and the cadastral infrastructure of the country. The University of Rwanda now has also set a Geographic Information Systems and Remote Sensing Center. This is a center whereby interested students can go and do some trainings in geospatial analysis. And we have UNILAC, through the partnership with the Xinjiang Institute of Ecology, we have set a GIS laboratory. And these are some of the students who are dealing with the GIS issue. I think some of the students are here, they are there. Then we also have different trainings such as this one. We also have some conferences. For instance, the previous one was called the Africa GIS. That was in 2019, to keep building the capacity of the people to leverage this technology. As a success story, I have been one among the members that have explored all of these techniques to publish different researches. This was a book that have been published by me and my supervisor, and I have used all the factors you have seen to publish all of these articles that are currently helping Rwanda to maybe change the policy or to make some decision. What can we take away home? Earth observation technology is a new emerging technology, and it is very important in addressing the climate-induced disaster. How? Through monitoring, modeling, then from that we can deduce some mitigation measures. Number two, this Earth observation provides critical data to monitor the environmental changes. And every mitigation measure starts from the monitoring of changes. When you see the changes, you know what to expect and you know what to do so that you cannot face your expectation in terms of disaster. This is a spatial intelligence. This is an instrument. We are using artificial intelligence. The algorithm that we are using are also artificial intelligence. These ones are helping in formulating effective mitigation measures, from strategic infrastructure planning to the early warning system, which is very important in disaster management. Lastly, we need to use, or we need to see the potential of Earth observation, because it can empower beyond reactive response, and this can foster a proactive and resilient approach that can help us to mitigate, to deal with climate-induced disasters and reduce all the effects that we are facing and be happy. Thank you very much.